Oh, man, yeah. Secretary's been,
They gave us new microphones.
yeah, it's a little small.
They didn't sneak some camera in there or something so they could look up our nose. Okay, yeah. All right. It's called meeting to order. Item number 1, roll call.
Commissioner Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Norwood,
Here.
Commissioner Zell,
Here.
Commissioner Waddell,
Here.
Commissioner Stallings.
He's here by video, I think. Is he not?
Dana, can you verify, is Commissioner Stallings on Zoom? He's not on yet? Okay. But you do have a quorum if you want to proceed, Mayor.
Okay. All right, we have a quorum, and please let us know when he does come on. Yeah, let me know when he gets there, though. Thank you. All right. Item number 2, at the commissioner's request, discuss any item of concern on the rescheduled regular session agenda of April 6th, 2021. Okay, seeing none, we'll go to item 3, study items. Discuss the 2021-2022 requested capital improvement program.
Yeah, I wanted to go ahead and kick off this, this presentation tonight. I think Chris is going to do most of the talking about a whole bunch of projects, but the purpose of tonight is to really have you take a look at the big, very long compiled list of needs, more needs and more needs for the city of Enid, a $40+ million list. And we've tried to, in some cases, do some prioritization. And we're looking really, what we're looking for tonight is to make you familiar with all the projects that have been requested, to make sure that that we're not missing some projects you'd like to see on the list, and then to help us start prioritizing those. So as we go in further into the budget process based on funding, we can plug these projects in based on the priorities. And so we'll have them broken down by funds. Chris is going to go over that. They've got a fantastic presentation put together for you. So the idea is to hear lots of questions from you about the projects, any other projects you'd like to see. And then I'd also like to give kudos to the communications team, because we have new communication sound equipment, and I can tell, hopefully you can hear me, and hopefully their sound system will work even better tonight. So with that, Chris is going to go over some things. Everett's here. He may talk about some of the street stuff, and then we'd like to answer your questions and get these projects better prioritized so it'll be easier to plug them in with the funding we have. Again, it's about 40 million plus, and we'll probably, I'm guessing, have around 10 to $15 million normally. And so that's kind of the challenge we'll have.
But before we go any, and you can go ahead and
Sure.
Chris, but I love this GIS link that you folks gave us this time, being able to click through and see that. Is that link posted online so other folks can go pull it up?
Yes.
Yes, it's attached to the agenda.
It's a really, really good system. If anybody hasn't gone through and clicked through, all the projects are grouped by category, and you can click and it kind of zooms in on the map, and it's a really nice way to look at this. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
That was done by Morali and Jeremy out of the engineering department.
Good job, man.
They really knocked it out the past 2 weeks getting it lined up. So the intent is if we survive technology tonight, then we'll probably continue to use this process. Okay?
Good.
Okay, first up, let's go through the airport fund. We have one project there. This is one you're familiar with. It's the crack seal over at the airport by Hangar 17. And if you see, you can click on the areas where it's outlined, and that'll give you some of the information. Okay. We have some asphalt and street repair basic unit price purchases by Public Works that they use across the city.
Back to the first one. Are we receiving funds from the state for that as well?
I am not aware of any.
Yes, that's from the State Strategic Military Planning Commission. Is let's see, that's for the crack sealing project. Is that what you're asking about, Mayor?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
So
Jennifer
we
is.
have to contribute to that? I mean, they're giving 75%. We got to come up with the rest or what?
Yeah, Keston, why don't you go ahead and answer that question?
Yes, sir. Keston Cook,
Yeah.
Airport Director. This is actually not that project. That project is happening this fiscal year. That's our main ramp, south ramp, and joint use ramp. This is in front of one of our hangars.
Oh,
This is,
okay.
Just for regular old crack sealing in front of some hangars that tenants have been complaining about.
Okay. Appreciate the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, back to Fund 30-4406, maintenance and repair. That is for Public Works to use those items where they need across the city throughout the year. The next project is going to be the local street construction, which is construction and repair. The top three items on this list, go to the first one. The one on East Maple. That's phase 2 of a project that we currently have in work. And so that is to provide the necessary funds to finish that part of the project. Birch to 16th, or 16th to 26th. Another one of those projects that this one will provide us with some of the reconstruction of that. And on these local street projects, you know, these are, at this point, these are rough estimates. Once we get down to the final list, we'll end up doing a little more detailed estimating on our budget. The next one is Roseanne. This is a street that got severely damaged during the last or the deep freeze. And there's like 1,300 feet of this asphalt street that is just cracked and cratered down the middle. And so this project is to try to get that back up to where it's a little more passable. We have Elm. Washington to Van Buren. This is a continuation of a project that we've been doing. We're interested in getting the water lines on Elm across and upgraded because of their size. This is just the next step. And then repair the street. Walnut. From Lincoln to Garfield, it's another street reconstruction. You can see the dollar amounts there. West Oak on Lincoln and Hayes. Is the next one. And this will provide to the reconstruction of those streets. And once again, once we get down to the final list, we'll determine which streets we can design in-house, along with the water lines, along with our point repair and our bridge structures. We can't do all of this list, obviously, with the manpower that we have. But once we get the list skinny down to what you want, we'll get on it. And then we have Durango Road. And these all came from Public Works based on the condition of the street and some of the things that they've seen and damages in the last freeze. Another one at East Locust. And it's up there for what we've got it down at $300,000. East Chestnut, 5th to Cedar. That is a reconstruction along with the water line. So next. The next one's going to be North 8th Street. It's a smaller project. It gives us an opportunity to connect Broadway and East Randolph. Should be a relatively small project, relatively straightforward. South Jefferson. This is one over there by the high school. Apparently it's in pretty sad shape and it's in need of reconstruction, and there's a water line associated with it. Okay, West Main. And looks like we need to wait for our technology to catch up. Okay, another relatively short street, but it does have a water line in it, so it would take a little bit more effort to take care of. We have North 12th. That one is significantly larger. Design for the street itself and the water line at 1.4. We've got several over in Heritage Hills, I believe it is. We have Cellar Door Lane, Candlestick Lane, could you scroll out a little bit? And there's the three of them there, Hummingbird and Redbird. And there at the bottom, we have the street point repair. This is that program that we've been running with Public Works. This is the third year that we've done that, where we've allocated a certain amount of funds for them to pick those smaller projects and repair them as needed based on potholes and demand and complaints and comments. Okay, we've also got our residential and commercial sidewalk partnership program. Those programs allow people who have busted sidewalks in front of their businesses or their houses to partner with us on a 50-50 basis to get those sidewalks repaired. We pick up the cost of the ADA corner nodes. Okay, the next fund should be capital improvement, 9151. The first one up there is our phase 3 soccer complex. Now that one's pretty straightforward. It's to finish. I really don't know that we'll actually get the transportation, all the transportation construction finished with this budget, but it will get us a long ways there. Once we get those on contract and figure out where we're at, we'll have a better idea of that. Number 2 down there is the landfill permitting. We started this process in this current fiscal year, and this is take the next step and start working on all the documentation and environmental work that has to be accomplished to convert that quarter on the south side of the landfill and get it permitted for use. We anticipate this is something that generally takes 5 years or more. And so this is really looking out there into the future. Excuse me. The third one is the roof at the Great Plains building. We're figuring that's about $220,000 to repair that. That'll require an architect to do some work. But that's fairly straightforward. We do roofs all the time. Next one is to.
Will that disturb the asbestos or anything, or are you going to have to?
Probably not, because it's going to be above the roof line. And
Okay.
so, or the substructure, and most of the asbestos is going to be in your tiles in the ceiling, the floor, and the ductwork.
Okay.
The next one is bringing it up to compliance to ADA standards, the first floor and portion of the second, I believe. That's about 570. That one will probably require some testing and mitigation. The next one is the planning for how to utilize the remaining capacity at the landfill. The public utilities director, since we're starting to look at at getting to the capacity of that landfill, he wants to make sure he's got a good solid plan on how to utilize it and how to maximize what space we do have left. And that's what that brings. The next one are the light signals at York and Van Buren. This is the second year that we've tried to take on this project. Those poles are really not in that good of shape. The previous time, we just could not get poles, and we couldn't get a bid from a vendor that was within our budget limits. So we're going to take another shot at that. Number 7 is to upgrade the lights at Cleveland and Van Buren. The intent here is to install new heads that allow us to have a yellow flashing arrow on the left turn lanes. So basically what that'll do is that'll allow your left turn traffic when there's no oncoming traffic to get through, as opposed to how it is now, which holds them up.
Thank you.
You're more than welcome. Thank Gerald for that one.
Thank you.
Erwin and I appreciate it.
Commissioner Allen, good job.
Every party needs a straight man. The next one is an equipment wash bay over at the landfill. They're looking for a way to clean down some of their equipment, hopefully reduce some of the maintenance that's going on due to debris and dirt. We have another one from Public Works to start upgrading the lights in the downtown area and change out the heads and potentially go to LEDs and make them look a little better, hopefully. And that's just phase 1, just to get started. So that'll be an ongoing project once we decide to do that and you approve the funds. Public Works Tech Services is also working on rewiring intersections. What we found is that as the wiring and the insulation gets old in the conduits, they tend to short out, crack, become brittle, and we need to start replacing those. So that's going to be an ongoing project, probably for a couple of years, I would expect. But at this level of funding, that's something they feel like they can accomplish this year. There's a need to replace the security gates at the service center. And we also are continuing our project upgrade traffic detection at a few more intersections in town. You know, this is also an ongoing one that the intent is to get them all upgraded to where we have a common set of detection equipment using the best technology, and it starts to feed in that ability to do remote monitoring and control. The same with the traffic battery system. And then also we're continuing to change out traffic light cabinets, which all these together start to feed into improving traffic light control. There's a hazardous material storage building design that's needed out at the landfill. And so what this project will do, that'll start that process. And there's a desire to do some remodeling inside the service center, utility services.
Are any of these incremental traffic upgrades getting us any closer to making downtown traffic lights work rationally? Or are they all outside of downtown?
These, to my understanding, are primarily on our major corridors right now. Once we get those problems solved, for example, they rewired Willow and 81 last summer, because it kept failing. So that's, we're starting at the major intersections.
So
would you like a timeline?
We've been talking about getting the downtown traffic lights in line, synchronized, whatever the term is, since before I went on city council.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like it's one of those projects that keeps getting down for another year. Not even sure I understand exactly what will be entailed. I think at one point we had talked about it would require replacing all the control cabinets downtown.
Well, I'm not familiar with the details of that one, but we can get with Everett and Gerald and Tech Services and get you an answer.
If it's something that can be done for not an outrageous price, we've been telling people for a really long time that we'd get to it eventually. And anyone who's driven through downtown and hit 4 red lights going east to west I'm sure shares my frustration. If there's a way we can do it, then at least maybe try to get it on the radar. I think it was on the radar, maybe dropped off a little bit.
We'll take a look.
I think we can add it as a project. I think it'll be very expensive because my understanding, the lights downtown are on timers. There's no smart technology down there or video detection. That would probably also involve some street work, but we can certainly add it to the list and you guys can help us prioritize those as you.
Well, we're about to embark on street work through, a pretty significant chunk of downtown, hitting 1, 2, 3, 4 controlled intersections next year, aren't we, on Randolph?
Yes.
And so if it's one of those things where if we've got to put sensors underneath the concrete to make the traffic lights work, I don't know how those things work now. I know at one point that was the thing, but anyway, if we could just get that at least some idea of rough scale, if it's going to be $1 million, then maybe we don't want to. If we can start working on it incrementally as we resurface downtown streets, maybe it's worth starting.
Sure. I think we can look at the cost estimate, put a project on. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll look into that. The next fund is for maintenance and repairs. There's been a request to do some weatherproofing on the exterior of this building. That's kind of weatherproofing the grout and the mortar, just kind of extend the life of the project building. The next one is our transition plan funding, which we are currently planning on doing the pool and regrouting it and getting it back into shape, hopefully on the floor and in the water side of it. And any residual funds on that one, we hope to start the design of reworking the intersection at Independence and Garriott to be somewhat like what we're doing at Grand.
So spending the entire $300,000 transition budget on Champlain Pool, what does that get us?
Right now, we're looking at doing mostly the grouting on the inside and repairing some of the cracks. But that won't take all 300 grand. I believe, what's the estimate that we had on that?
The budget estimate is 300 on the.
Yeah, but we don't anticipate it'll all go there. We just know that we have to spend 300 every year.
Right. my question then is if this is a good investment at this point. I mean, if the pool is another thing we've been hearing. I mean, Gerald, I think last year we even talked about whether in the financial sense to open it at all, but that we are approaching the end of the lifespan of some rather significant components, a big pump maybe or something to that effect. What's our lifespan on what we have, and are we throwing good money after bad?
Well, I think we've spent about 50,000 or something like that. Everett may have some more details on that this year to get the pool open. I think the pumps, I understand, are in decent shape. We spent some money several years ago on those. As far as the pool at the end of its life, it was probably at its end of its life a long time ago. The real problem is if we don't open it, we don't have another solution for the pool right now. So the intent on this transition money was not to spend 300,000 on the pool. It was to spend whatever the remaining cost was on the grout work on the tiles. And I don't know what that amount is, but we can figure that out and you guys can make that decision.
And that qualifies under the consent decree or whatever that dictates the standing, the ADA says that doesn't seem right to me. I don't know how regrouting the pool can go to our ADA transition plan.
We will definitely have to look into that item. Typically on the transition plan, it has to be specified.
Carol's making a face that
Okay.
we have issues.
I'm surprised that we could use ADA money for it, but maybe we can.
Let's just go ahead and look into it further because to be honest with you, I don't know. And we probably need to look into that. The 300,000 we budget on a blanket basis, we should probably just put it there, to be honest with you, because we have an ADA advisory committee that typically gives us recommendations. We try to follow their recommendations. And so I don't know that they have made recommendations for this next budget year yet.
Well, I know we're obligated to spend that amount of money every year and to chip away at what's on the long-term transition plan. I guess I mean, one, I don't want to get us in trouble by spending money that we have to spend on something we can't.
I
Two, if
assure
we're,
you, we won't get in trouble because we scrutinize this. We have the ADA oversight. We have a staff person in engineering, Angela Rasmussen, that looks into this. I'm not sure why it's lumped up there. I just know, again, this is probably a preliminary discussion with you guys because, to be frank, most of these projects will not be in the budget unless we find extra funds. So, but the 300,000 will, because we do that every year. And
well, I think we
So
make
we
good
will
use
make
of the
sure
money
we
when we're
help out.
doing intersections and making things more safe for pedestrians and walkable and all that, that I think is more what it had in mind. If we are at a point where we're going to spend a large chunk of change in the pool, then it seems like, I mean, if we can keep it hobbling along, then great, let's keep it hobbling along. But realistically, if we're going to spend six figures on the pool, then we probably need to think real hard about whether there might be,
Agreed.
do we get more traffic from another splash pad or something like that? Or like the aquatic center, like done in, I think, Woodward and Kingfisher or something to that effect. Not just keep the pool on autopilot. Maybe you can come back with a little more information on what's going to take just to keep it open at some point down the road. Thanks.
Okay, the next four are out at the golf course. There's a need to redesign the, excuse me, the snack bar. And that'll be the first one up there. And that provides for the design capability. The next one is to redesign the irrigation out in the course. Apparently there's a lot of repairs going on and some of the heads are starting to fail. And we really need to take a look at, instead of piecing it together, let's figure out what it would take to replace it. There's a desire to put a sun's sail on the east side of the clubhouse at the patio to allow for sitting out there in the evenings and not have the sun beat down on you. And then there's an old maintenance building that we really do need to take down. Okay, the next fund is 9222, Reconstruction and Overlays. The first one is the next installment of Cleveland Street, north of the railroad tracks. The intent of this budget year, now that we've got the channel going east out to bid. We have half the water line relocation out to bid. And so the intent here is to finish those utility relocations and get this in ODOT's hands for construction. Yeah.
In 5 or 6 years.
You never know.
Yeah.
The next one is utility relocation at the intersection of Randolph and Garland. As you recall, we've done the design of that. I believe we have all parcels except for one. And so we're going to start relocating those utilities on there in preparation for construction. The next one is utility relocation for Garland up to Randolph at the end of the intersection project on the south leg. That's $1 million. The intent there is to relocate all those utilities in preparation for widening that road. And then our next project for the future is to begin the design effort on Randolph from Oakwood to Cleveland. So the intent there is to do the design of that project and get it started in the process of reconstruction and widening. The next budget fund is going to be parks projects. The top one is a new restroom at Government Springs, if you'll go to that one. What we've done is we found a place in there where we can rebuild, or we can build a new restroom, get rid of the old one. We have access to water and sewer, and we're out of the floodplain. So it's been a long time coming, but we're ready to do that one. The next one is replacing the lighting at Kellett Park in the middle ball field. That's $250,000. You'll recall that we set the stage to get these done piecemeal over a couple of years by improving the power and getting it all underground. The next one is one from last last year where we were talking about building 2 new ball fields up in Crosland Park, right next to the 2 that we built a year and a half ago. And the next one is upgrades back down at Kellett Park for fence and roofing, improving the fencing on the ball fields. And we're going to try to get 2 of them done, the south 2. Number 5 is overlaying the parking lot on the north side of Meadow Lake Park. As you can tell, I mean, if you've been there, you know it kind of needs it. We're looking at improving the entrance to that entrance as well, and make that just a little more serviceable. The next one is a security gate at Parks and Recs facility that's up there over there by the service center off of Poplar. But it right now does not have a security gate. There's a desire to build the trail on the south side of Meadow Lake Park. This is one to pick it up from the parking lot where the low water crossing ends up and going straight south across to the other side of the park, and then join up where the Vance Trail design ends, which is at the on the east side of the horseshoe pits, about where that parking lot is at. Okay. The next one is a concession and restroom building up at Crosland Park, and to do the design to that. That's on the edge of those ball fields. There's been a desire to get restrooms there and concessions. The intent of this project is to provide the design for the building and to design the water line and sewer line that are going to be required to service that. Number 9 is once again shore stabilization down at Meadow Lake Park. We have tried to get this one done. It keeps eluding us to either due to cost or weather, but we're going to try one more time if you want us to.
So this is where you put in the big rocks?
We'll probably do something other than rocks. What we'll do is we'll end up having to lower the lake level, basically work the shoreline to where it's more of a slope, and then we'll put a protective mat, if you will.
Will we just see ugly black riprap, or will it?
No, I anticipate you'll see either black or green half nodes, for lack of a better term.
Half nodes?
Domes.
Okay.
It's a mat that you roll out and fix to the ground, and then let it silt in, and does pretty good for holding the shore.
So that will stop the erosion that's eating away the park?
Yes.
Because I mean, a lot of it has disappeared.
Yes. And, but the problem that we have is, as you know, that's really basically a straight drop. Particularly on the north side, it's really bad. And so what we've got to do is make that a little more of a slope so we can protect it.
How deep is the drop off there? What's the pond depth at that point?
I don't have that information off the top of my head.
I noticed a couple of got a couple more softball things we're going to put up by Crosland Park. Have we looked at how much parking there is there? I've heard from quite a few people that seems to be an issue now, and it's going to be more of an issue if we got more ball fields there.
Ball fields. Right now, I don't believe we have a project up there for parking.
We can look at parking. There certainly is a problem.
Yeah.
Well, one of the problems is space to put parking in.
Right.
And I just want to remind everybody, these are potential projects. So probably before we leave tonight or sometime after the meeting, if there are specific projects that you would like that are priorities for you as a commission, if you would let us know. Because again, all of these cumulatively are over $40 million worth. So the 2 additional softball fields are a request and a need, but that's a good example, Mayor. Parking may be a bigger need that should be funded.
Okay, thank you.
We'll definitely put that one on the list. Okay, now we're going over to Reconstruction and Overlay. The first one up is the Randolph Mill and Overlay between Washington and 7th. You'll recall we started that project last year with a design and the water line work 2 years ago. Yeah, 2 years ago. Gosh, time flies. And so what we bid out in this fiscal year was the concrete work associated with that work, that project, primarily the nodes and corners. And this is to bid out the actual mill and overlay. The second one up is Randolph 26th to 30th. We bid that out this fiscal year, and we lacked a little bit of getting all the way to the end where we wanted. And so this $150,000 will give us that last little bit.
The mill and overlay from Washington to 7th,
Yes,
do we have a timeline on that at this point?
not yet.
Okay.
We're still waiting. We're still waiting on getting the water line through the downtown area. Once we get that, the downtown area, then we'll start to be able to look at the mill and overlay.
And then we're doing the water fountain at the skate park with that project or at the same time as some of that. Is that right, Gerald?
Yes, we have some city responsibilities, hooking up the water line, putting in a ADA line spot, and improving some things in that area, planting a couple of trees, that sort of thing.
Since we're looking at the capital improvement projects, we're discussing that. I went down to the skate park on Randolph, and I was amazed of how many children and adults were down there having fun. And I said, man, it's not big enough. So I'm just going to put it out there. Gerald, you said things that we would like to see happen. Thanks to Ben Ezel. Thank you, Commissioner. But I think we need to extend it in the future whenever we have the funds and availability to be able to do that, because honestly, it's just not big enough. You know, and we have some land south of it. I don't know who owns it or how we can go about purchasing that land, but I just want to.
We own it all.
We own that all?
Yeah, we own it all.
No excuse. I just want to echo that out there that we need to enlarge that.
There is a large stormwater structure underground in that area. But I would probably suggest that we not attack that one yet until we get the box on Broadway fixed and that intersection. And the goal is just to include most of Fifth Street. And so as Randolph goes by on the mill and overlay, we have to fix the corner nodes at the intersection of Fifth and Randolph. And since we're tearing up the intersection at Fifth and Broadway, it only makes sense. Let's go ahead and clean that up. And if funds are available, we'll address the parking that's on the north side of Broadway, on the south side of our property.
And that's also where, when they had the event there a couple of weeks ago, Gerald, that they were hoping we could put a tree line in there along Broadway on the south edge of that tract, just as a windbreak. Get a lot of wind rushing through there.
Yes, I think we can certainly look at doing that at, maybe even something right now, but certainly when we improve that area. But one of the things, just to follow up on what Commissioner Norwood said, we do have plans at some point to put the retro skate park there too, which is those items that were at the old skate park. And that probably won't be as exciting, as popular as the new one, but Stillwater did that, and we thought that was pretty cool.
A lot of people have said that they liked, now the skate park designers saw our old skate park and pulled their hair out and just said, dear God, those are dangerous. But the people who actually skate them really like them. So that might be, I think we probably have to pour some more concrete, but.
Yes.
Okay, the next one on this list, it's waterline relocation on Randolph from Van Buren to Washington. The goal here is to get the water line. I think we've already got that one almost designed. And so it'll get ready to be, should be ready to go out to bid in the new fiscal year. And that will be in preparation for starting the design work on mill and overlay of that project. And as you can see, we're working Randolph from one side of the city to the other, which is kind of what our transportation plan recommends. Okay, we've got another mill and overlay over on the east side of Randolph between 7th and 17th. Start the design on that process. And then we've got one out looking into the future, and that's we kind of need to work on Independence and from Randolph from Garriott north, and see how far we can get. We'd really like to get all the way up Randolph, but it's another one of those it's a pretty big project. That's to feed the future. Okay. Did you want to go over to the projects under sanitary sewer? They're all our basic ones. These are actually fenced funds, and these are the priorities which engineering assigns them. This gives us the ability to take care of the things that we need to take care of. Obviously, rehab some lift stations, address some issues out at the water reclamation facility, and some maintenance at a detention pond out there as well. Under stormwater, those also are roughly fenced funds, but I did want to call out a few of the more critical ones that we're going to be attacking on in this coming budget year. As you'll recall, East Chestnut, the storm sewer underneath East Chestnut collapsed, and we ended up with a really large sinkhole. And it turns out what we had to do is we had to take all the street up, all the storm sewer up, and put it back down. This project here is to extend that back to the west for another 2 blocks, where we think we think we're going to find the end of the failures. And so that's what that project's going to do.
And that's a good time to let commissioners know that also puts the concrete's at the original elevation, I think. So there have been at least a couple complaints that I've received at City Hall about there's a bump there. I think we have a sign up there. This project will actually make that bump go away. And the reason there was an engineering purpose for the bump, I think it was a good reason. It was to put the concrete back at the original elevation. So when the other 2 blocks gets done, it'll be smooth for at least 4 blocks or 5 blocks, however long that is.
The next one is to continue the work and should finish up the work at the Sarco Park for the stormwater. Number 3 is a placeholder for 312 North Harding. Once we get the repairs done, the temporary repairs done that we're working now, we'll reevaluate that situation. Number 4 is Willow Detention for bringing that water across off of Cleveland. We have a couple of box structures down on Southgate that we need to work. They're old wooden structures. And earlier this year, we had to load limit one to 15 tons. And that's rural traffic there. So we kind of worry about our larger tractors going across those too. So we're going to work to get those knocked out. Number 9 is LIDAR Boggy Creek box. For those of you who don't know, there's a big box structure also under the center of town, or 412 and 81, our main intersection. And with what we saw coming out of the Randolph box at 4th Street, we decided that we needed to take and set a baseline for our other large box structures. And this is to do that. Okay, down to water maintenance in 4406. This is public utilities projects that are they're ongoing, reoccurring projects. This allows them to take care of water breaks and repair the streets. So there's kind of try to get caught up on some of those cuts that haven't been repaired or permanently yet. Fixing maintenance on hydrants. Air valves out in the well fields. And then we need to do an inspection on our elevated storage tanks. The next fund is 42.1. First one up there is our lead and copper. That comes from a notice from DEQ that there's a requirement for municipalities to have corrosion protection against lead and copper. That's primarily what it's for. And so we've done our first study, and now we're going to collect some more data and work on finding ways with the help from public utilities and what we're doing let's find ways to set up monitoring as close to real time as we can. And so that when we come to the future, when we get ready to switch our water supplies, we have a way of monitoring what's going on in the system. Part of that project, not this year, but probably next year, we'll have to start doing some dosing of the water lines with some chemicals to stabilize those mineral deposits that are on the inside of those lines. And so they don't leach out.
Chris,
Sure.
forgive me, can we go back to water maintenance? I have a question on number 3, the Ringwood Cleo well field water lines. How did the city keep all that from freezing up when we had that horrific weather a couple of months ago? I mean, we never really seemed to lose water here. Was it because of great maintenance or what happened? Tell us that story.
I haven't got firsthand experience, but what I do know is that most of that line is 5 feet or deeper. And so you get that far below the surface and you don't have as much risk of freezing. Because as bad as that cold spell was, it wasn't a really long one.
I see. And the last time we had trouble was because they lost electricity.
Ice in the well.
Happened this time.
Correct. That did not happen this time.
Okay.
The frost line in Oklahoma, I think, is only a couple feet deep, is what they tell us for what they like the standard frost line depth through most of Oklahoma. So I think that anything that deep just doesn't freeze, right?
Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Not a problem. The next one is a big one. It's not one that we're going to have to do this year, but this is the process that we use to get these kinds of things on our radar. This is the construction of the water line from the Ames plant north to the 42-inch water line, which is how we're going to bring all our water into town when we switch over to blended water. The third one is it's known as the American Water Infrastructure Act. There's a requirement on us to start to evaluate and plan on how to improve the resiliency and the security of our water infrastructure. Yes.
That $350 million pipeline is kind of our answer, isn't it?
Different kind of threat. This is not a threat of drought. External threats. The next one is the construction of the water line down Leona Mitchell. We've started the design in-house on that. We're about halfway done.
Can this be done in increments?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's 1.5 million is a lot. I mean, that's a big budget item. And I know this is, and we've talked about this a lot about how important it's going to be to get any development down there to get the water line replaced first. But I just worry that if it's all in that one big chunk, it's going to drop off the radar. It's kind of a big number. I mean, have you any sense of what kind of phasing this could be broken out into?
We can phase it at just about any size we want. The challenge that we have is the infrastructure in that area of town is relatively old, like 1925. And there's nervousness on my part hooking up a brand new high volume water line to old lines. And so we haven't figured out exactly how we want to do that. We're working on the modeling and we're starting to think that maybe there's ways to do that by once the water line gets to the end, back feeding that back to the north through smaller lines. But it would make me nervous to tie an old 4-inch line into this 12 to 16-inch line.
To the extent as this is going further along, it can be broken out into chunks. I think it's more likely that it'll survive budget season without getting hacked off as an easy 1.5.
You pick them and I'll fix them.
Well, I don't get to pick anything. I have 2 more of these meetings, but I do know that when we're making those budget decisions in past years, there's one really big number. It's easy to scratch that one off.
Yes, it is. How are we doing on time? Good. Okay.
I would just jump in and say that one, though, has some high visibility. We've talked about trying to fix waterline issues, so we will make every effort to get that in. But if phasing is necessary to get it in, we'll definitely look at that.
Okay. The next one is the New Garrett water line.
It costs 350 grand to go underneath the railroad tracks.
It can. It actually is fairly expensive to get under a railroad track. This is also to replace all the water line for 2 blocks under the railroad tracks in a very crowded corridor. The next one is the second location that the fire department identified as needing fire flows. We threw $1 million in there because we have not had, excuse me, had a chance to actually study and model this particular area. But, we can break that down into, let's go do some modeling and design work and then come back at another time for construction. But we did want to give you a feel for where we believed those dollars would end up at the end of the day when we got done with fixing the fire flows. Roughly the same wood in the Kenwood area. It's not quite as old of a system as I recall, but it is a much larger area.
Sorry, real quick. Gerald, the lights and the intersection at I guess Grand and Garriott, is that somewhere on here and I just didn't see it? Or are we doing that?
That's in this year's budget, I believe.
Okay.
And it's already been awarded, I think, in one of the last 2 meetings or something like that.
Yeah, I think we awarded that last meeting. We had a
Okay,
reconstruction meeting.
Great.
Today.
Good news on that one.
I appreciate that. I lost track of that. Thank you very much. Very good news.
The number 8 is the continuation of our waterline relocation project. This is another one of those where we budget a certain amount of money and we get as far as we can get. The goal is to get that all the way across 81 and kind of tie all those in together, get us a little better flow. The next one is a water line on West Elm. It's a pretty small line, pretty straightforward. We have a pair of dead end loops over there on King Street and Commerce. You want to minimize the box form? Close your text box, please. That should give you a pretty good idea. You notice that's behind where the corner of Oakwood, where the Harvey's is at. We have 2, your text box. Okay. The next water line is over on West Pine. And these water lines are ones that public utilities have requested attention to. Obviously, there's way more than what we can get done in a budget year. They're based on the condition of the water lines and the amount of repairs that have happened in that area. That's what the rest of those are. If you would like to go through them, we can. And so that's the end of the list. Basically, we've got $45 to $48 million worth of projects that were submitted this year and those that we brought forward from last year that didn't get funded.
I would say that being in construction myself, I look at ProBid and I look bid pros and I watch the contracts that come in, and I also look at the bids that come in, and I want the public to know that our city manager and the engineers department is doing an incredible job. You guys are doing an incredible job. For the amount of money that we're paying for the work that's been done, it's incredible.
Thank you, sir.
I just wanted to let you all know that, because I said, man, I don't know how we're getting this much work done for this amount of money. It's a good thing. So I just feel like you guys need to know that as a councilman, I do watch the numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And I study them, you know, and I don't know what you're doing, but keep doing it, you know, because we're
flogging these two young engineers that are sitting down here behind me.
okay. All right. So thank you for your work. And
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the reason why the public, you know, the citizens of Enid, everywhere you go, man, a lot's going on in Enid. You know, we hate the road closings. We're tired of having to go the long distance. And I say, well, don't worry about it. Just hang in there a little bit longer and you'll enjoy it. So I just want to thank you guys and let you all know that you're doing an awesome job.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We also have noticed that we are getting a lot of competitive bids because there's not as much going on elsewhere.
Good.
Yes. And I make that remark. I say, you know, these guys are buying jobs. I'll run out of business, but they're making it happen some kind of way. So, you know, even with the engineer's estimation, being able to get work done for under the estimation, that's incredible.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions?
I want to ditto what Commissioner Norwood said. My comment is that I appreciate the work wards 1 and 2 where we're fixing that light there at Cleveland. But I don't want to lose sight of the fact that we need to continue on west with that. We need to do that again at Oakwood, and we need to do it again at Garland. Those are very high traffic areas, and those are the old fashioned lights where we don't get traffic moving through them the way we do it through most of Enid. And I know it's very expensive to redo those, but in order for people that come out from out of town, it's incumbent upon us to make sure that they travel through Enid better. And it just amazes me how much traffic is on Owen Gary at 412. It's just remarkable. You used to be able to sail through town, and I'm talking about just a few years ago. So it's very important for us not to lose sight of that. I hope that when I'm gone, you would continue to work those next two intersections. Thank you.
Is the intersection at Garland and Garriott, first question, that's an Odot intersection, right?
Yes, sir.
And once the soccer complex is built, will we get a Odot to do a traffic study and look at upgrading it, or what's that process?
Well, we can upgrade it if we need to. We will have to do a traffic study, get a permit from Odot. We're doing Grand and in Garriott now. So we have a good working relationship with the folks from Odot. It's the question is that particular intersection for the 412 traffic is set up pretty well because you've got 2 lanes that are turning left going south if you're westbound.
So when does Odot pay to upgrade an intersection if there's been additional traffic? Ever?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well,
we pushed them on 54th Street after a fatal accident, and it still didn't come up to warrant the light.
so if we see a bunch of additional traffic at this Cleveland-Garriott intersection, once everything's open and moving over there and discover Cleveland and Garriott,
Okay.
and discover there needs to be some significant improvements to that intersection, that's going to fall on us, not ODOT.
That'll fall on us. But if it's one of those that we can get in line with ODOT, they'll contribute $1 million to it.
Okay.
I can tell you that it's also on ODOT's 8-year plan to come through and I think do an overlay or something on their 8-year plan. So that might be the time to consider. But yes, we would have to provide significant funding to make that happen, whatever time that's going to be. That might be a time that data comes in, and I think we've had a couple of conversations with them about that already at the city, but it's pretty far out on their calendar.
And we've looked at that intersection, and right now it doesn't warrant much of an upgrade, but we anticipate the traffic to increase. The last traffic study, which was done 4 years ago, when we started down this venture on the districts before it was the district, indicated that it probably higher.
Then presumably at some point we're after 4-lane Cleveland from Garriott to to almost Randolph,
Maple,
maybe?
Maple. So Cleveland is 4-lane from,
I meant widen, not, yeah,
yeah, widen,
but widen.
widen again. Probably. The challenge with the intersection at that particular location is the real estate. It is very crowded and would require moving buildings.
Yeah. Okay.
On the lights going over the overpass, do you have any idea when those lights will be cut on? Anyone?
I have not heard.
I believe that's still an ODOT responsibility to get those turned on. And I think there's some ADA work they have to redo there. That's the last conversations that I was aware of with their engineer. That's what we were told. I believe they're also waiting on at least one light there too. If you'll notice, there's a base there without a light pole on it.
Right. Do they plan on extending the side? Jerry had asked us a while back, the sidewalk on the east side of the bridge. Do they plan on going north a little?
No, they don't. I think that we talked about putting that in here. I don't know if it's in here or not. Are you talking about the sidewalk on the north side?
Northeast side, sir.
Of the overpass? No, they don't plan to do that. We'd asked them specifically about that. That was never in the plans. And we also asked them about barriers in the middle, and that was a decision that ODOT had made early on in the project. Answer the question, no, if we want a sidewalk there, we can certainly put it in the budget and look to do it.
I think it would be important with the traffic exiting off the bridge, where it exits off the bridge, having ADA truncated domes on both sides of the road there. I think it would be a safety thing that we should take a look at.
Add it to the list. Any other questions?
This is Rob. Can y'all hear me?
Yep. Go ahead.
This is a question for Gerald. I mean, we just listened to $48 million worth of capital improvements, give or take $1 million or $2 million. What do you think is realistic? What's going to show up when you put the budget together? How much of this are we going to be able to eat in one bite?
15.
Well, I don't know the exact answer right now. I'm thinking it's going to be in around the $10 to $15 million area. I do know that we have the potential maybe to have some additional funds that might be able to help us with this, with the American Rescue Plan stuff that was passed, that we're still waiting to hear more information on. But that's a significant amount, something like $11 million that we would have something like 3 years to be able to spend for specific purposes like COVID relief or making up revenue shortfalls or paying for certain capital projects. Specifically what they named was water, sewer, and broadband, actually. So I think there's some opportunity to shift some stuff around in the budget, maybe use some of those funds. Aaron, do you have a better feel for what might fit? Okay, Aaron thinks we're on track with that. We'll certainly do our very best to get as much in here, but the purpose of this wasn't just to show you a bunch of stuff that we can't do. The purpose was to show you what we struggle with every year as a commission and a city staff putting a budget together. So to answer your question, out of the 48 million, we're going to try really hard to get 15 in. We're going to try to focus more on streets. Typically we have about $5+ million on streets. And currently in this budget, I think we have, it's very robust. I think we have 15 million on local streets and more on arterial. So probably if we can get about a third or a quarter of this, we'll be doing pretty good, Commissioner.
That's what I was looking for. Thanks for the answer.
Lots of these are multi-year projects anyway. I mean, they're
Point.
the projects on this list that even if we had a blank check, we couldn't get done in one fiscal year.
All right.
Okay. Chris, I want to thank you. I echo Commissioner Ezell's remarks from earlier. I thought this was really well put together. One of the best that I've seen. I think you guys have come a long way. And I know it didn't happen overnight. So it took a lot of hard work from a lot of folks on your staff, but much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. That's it for study session. We're going to adjourn and we will reconvene at 6:30.